Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 241 of the current situation. And of course, as we know, yesterday was a big news day, not only here in Spain, but around the world with the announcement of a possible vaccine in coming months. But more about that in just a minute and the impact that that piece of news had here in Spain. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. A big thanks to people that supported the channel through a small donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now, as I said yesterday, the big news was the announcement by the pharmaceutical company Pfizer that they have a vaccine that might be ready by the end of the year. And here in Spain, fair to say that that news yesterday had a fairly big impact. We can see from this headline here that Pfizer's vaccine changes Spain's economic outlook. Spain's main stock market index, the IBEX 35, closed yesterday with the largest rise in 10 years, driven by the advances in the COVID vaccine. Tourism stocks and banking led the spectacular rebound with increases of over 20% and even 30%, which allowed the Spanish index as a whole to earn more than 39 billion euros in a single session. We can see here, if we look at the index, that yesterday the IBEX increased by 8.57%, and the biggest gains were experienced by companies such as Meliá, IAG, Bank Inter, Colonial and Santander. So companies there related to tourism, and some of the banks saw the biggest increases yesterday. If we have a look at the markets today, we can see that there have also been some increases, and when I last checked, the IBEX was up 2.51%, and companies like IAG, the airline company, were up 8.06% today. So lots of optimism yesterday in the markets, and as we saw, Spain's economic outlook completely changed because of the Pfizer announcement. Now, on the topic of the vaccine, the Health Minister, Mr. Illa, came out this morning and said that the first doses of the vaccine should arrive at the beginning of next year. He said that the vaccines will allow us to move to a different stage of the pandemic, not only in Spain, but in many neighbouring countries at the level of economic and social recovery, and yesterday's reaction from the stock exchanges indicates this change. He also said that we still need to treat the situation with caution, but we have started to see light at the end of the tunnel. And the health minister also said in the interview that they expect to immunise 10 million people in Spain with the Pfizer vaccine in early 2021. The health minister said that the government expects to receive 20 million doses of the vaccine from the pharmaceutical company Pfizer and the BioNTech group, which this Monday announced that it was 90% effective. And with these 20 million doses, it will be possible to vaccinate 10 million people against coronavirus, as 2 doses are required. The minister has assured that the vaccine will be distributed free of charge in the national health system, and to select who will be the first to receive it will be done with technical criteria and in accordance with what the vaccination experts say, although he has recognised that initially it will go to risk groups. We're going to be guided by what the experts say, but the logical and normal thing is to start with the most vulnerable groups, as well as the groups that are in contact with the vulnerable, such as health workers. Asked if it will be mandatory in our country to be vaccinated against COVID-19, as some countries are saying, Illa has ruled it out. I don't think it will be necessary to make the vaccine mandatory. People understand that vaccination has to be managed to end other infectious diseases in the past, he argued. And he has warned the anti-vaxxers and the deniers that the government is going to be very clear and forceful against people who tell lies and play anti-science. So the government expecting to have some 10 million people vaccinated in the first few months of 2021. And of course, the economic hopes of the country are also pinned on the success of this vaccine. Now let's have a look at the current health situation in Spain by looking at a map of the country as a whole and various autonomous communities. We can see here, starting with the country, that the risk level is extreme. The total amount of cases there, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days sits at 529.43. There have been 1,054 deaths in the last 7 days. And hospital pressure around the country, we can see that there are currently 21,029 patients in hospitals with COVID at the moment. And there are currently 3,007 COVID patients in ICUs around Spain. Looking here at the Madrid community, we can see that the risk level is also extreme. The total amount of cases there, the AI rate for the last 14 days sits at 355.43. Deaths in the last 7 days, 52. There are currently 2,723 COVID patients in hospitals in Madrid, and there are 463 COVID patients in ICUs. Andalusia now, we can see that the risk level there is also extreme. The total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 576.76. Deaths in the last 7 days, 175, and there are currently 3,273 patients in hospital with COVID, and there are 429 COVID patients in ICUs in Andalusia, which means that 28.28% of all ICUs are occupied by COVID patients. And finally here, the Canary Islands, we can see that the risk level there is medium. The total amount of cases since the pandemic began, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 82.38. Deaths in the last 7 days, 10. There are currently 236 people in hospitals with COVID in the Canary Islands, and there are 46 COVID patients in ICUs, which means that 10.38% of all ICUs are occupied by COVID patients. Now, as we know, the Andalusian government announced on Sunday that they were bringing in harsh restrictions. We can see here that Andalusia has now confined its municipalities and suspended all non-essential business activity from 6 p.m. The measures aimed at curbing the coronavirus pandemic will come into effect on Tuesday and last until November 23. So those changes in Andalusia coming into effect today. Now, you might be in Andalusia and wondering what exactly you can and can't do. Well, the good news is that the government there in Andalusia has produced a fantastic interactive map that tells you exactly what you can and can't do in each municipality. We'll have a look at it here, and we'll take, for example, the case of Nerja, and we can see that currently Nerja is in phase 4, and on the left there you can see exactly what you can and can't do. So quite a good map there to know exactly what's happening in Andalusia, and as usual, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Now, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, the health situation here in Spain seems to have reached its peak in the second wave. We can see here from this headline that the epidemic is slowing down in all autonomous communities, but pressure on hospitals continues to mount. The R number of reproduction of the COVID-19 virus, which indicates the average number of people to whom each positive case infects, is decreasing in almost all autonomous communities, according to data from the Carlos III Health Institute that have been analysed by a team at the Universidad Politécnica de Catalunya. And last weekend was the first weekend with a drop in positive cases in a month, but deaths unfortunately continued to mark new records. The Ministry of Health has reported 512 deaths and 52,386 new cases since Friday. So two pieces of positive news for a change, haven't seen that for a while. Firstly, that a vaccine is almost ready, and secondly, that the epidemic in Spain is slowing down. Now, as we know, one of the autonomous communities in Spain where there is a decrease in cases is Madrid. However, not everybody believes the data coming out of Madrid. We can see here that Catalonia doubts Madrid's coronavirus figures. The Secretary General of the Department of Health of the Generalitat, Marc Ramentol, has put in doubt today the figures of the progress of the pandemic of the coronavirus that arrived from Madrid. We question the optimism that comes from the Spanish capital. The lack of news is evident, says Ramentol. So there we go. Not everybody believing the Madrid miracle. Some people questioning the data coming out of Madrid. Do we need to be skeptical? Time will tell. Now, on that note, let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Linda on the subject of dubbing. Where we are on the Costa Blanca, we get an English-American film on Spanish TV, and then on the settings we just change to the original version, and bingo, the film is then in English-American. Yeah, Linda, thanks for the comment. You're right, nowadays it's very easy to change the audio settings, very easy to put movies and television programs into the original version, not like it used to be. I remember 20 years ago when I first came to Spain, you had to have a specific type of television, one that had a dual system, and you could also change the audio over, but it wasn't easy, as I said, to find those televisions. And I remember once I paid a lot of money for a video cassette recorder. Some people watching the video might not know what that is, but back in the day we all had a VHS video recorder, and I remember I paid a lot of money to get one that had this dual system so that I could record movies and then play them back in English. I remember I paid a lot of money for that, and wow, haven't times changed. One here from Dunk Yo. Hi Stuart, great info as usual, thanks. There's no pleasing some people regarding this potentially great vaccine news, but like any vaccine, people will take it and the minority won't. But COVID should go away at least, and let us all get back to normal. Yeah, Dunk, you're right, you can't please everybody. Not everybody was excited about that that news yesterday. We saw that the markets were excited. We saw that the health ministry here in Spain was excited, and a lot of people around the country and around the world were excited about the news of the vaccine. But as we know, for some people, vaccines are quite controversial. They refuse to take them. They think that there's some type of plot to control the world, and obviously they're not going to take this vaccine either. The majority most likely will. I'm sure that they will put their faith in medicine and try to get this whole coronavirus pandemic behind us. I think it's the only way to go forward. And the sooner things get back to normal, the better. Want to hear from Steve? Thanks for the update, Stuart. Honestly, with the pandemic and the Trump era, I think we've all aged several decades this year. Keep up the good work, Steve. Yeah, Steve, thanks for the comment. You're right, it's been a tough year for a lot of people, myself included. There's been so many things happening this year. People weren't ready for the pandemic. And of course, a lot of people have had trouble coming to terms with the new situation that we find ourselves in. Something that, as I said, the majority of us haven't experienced before. And I don't know if it's only me, but the last few years have been quite stressful as well from a political point of view, but hopefully things improve in the future. I'm optimistic. Want to hear from Azoz? I would like to know more about Malaga. So are we allowed to travel in between? Can I leave Malaga and go to Portugal or other communities in Spain? Hi Azoz, thanks for the comment, and the simple answer to that is no. You cannot travel anywhere in Andalusia at the moment except for your local municipality. You can only travel to other places unless you have a good reason to do so. You can't legally travel to Portugal, and you can't legally travel to other autonomous communities in Spain at the moment until November the 23rd, when the government says that these restrictions are going to end, but you never know, they might extend them for a little bit longer. It all depends on the health situation. So no, you can't leave your local municipality at the moment. One here from Caroline. Hi Stuart, I have watched every video since day one. I live in Lanzarote, so a lot of the information has not been relevant to where I live. However, I have learned so much about Spanish language and politics from watching your videos. I'm extremely grateful. Our lives here in Lanzarote are definitely resembling a new normal. We have a night out and adhere to all the rules and pull up people when they lapse in a polite way. We are all responsible for each other. Common sense should prevail. Yeah, Caroline, thanks for the comment, and glad to see that you find the videos informative and that you're learning a little bit more about the language and politics here in this country, which can be quite confusing at the best of times, but I do my best to try to explain it. And to be honest, I've never been to the Canary Islands, but I get the impression that it's a completely different world down there, a lot different to mainland Spain. And of course, the whole coronavirus situation has been completely different in the Canary Islands compared to what it's been like here on the mainland. And you're right, we all need a night out every now and again, but we need to adhere to the rules. But my recommendation would be careful if you decide to pull somebody up, because a lot of people don't like being told what to do, and some people are a little bit tense at the moment, so be careful. One here from EFT. Hi Stuart, drove back to the UK on Thursday and Friday from Denia via Bilbao, so travelled through several autonomous regions, did not see a single Guardia Civil officer, let alone a road check for the whole journey. First copper I saw was the border guards at the ferry terminal. Go figure. Keep up the good work. Yeah, thanks for the comment. I'm not surprised that you didn't see any police checks on your way from Denia to Bilbao. Obviously, they're not in place permanently. I don't think there's permanent controls around the country. Maybe in some specific autonomous communities or at specific times they might have a control, but let's be honest, the police just don't have the resources to put up 24-hour checks on the highways in this country, because there's so much traffic going through, and of course it would be a disaster if you had to stop every car or every other type of transport out of control. It would be a nightmare. But I think the majority of the population are adhering to the rules. I don't hear too many stories about people that are trying to travel to different autonomous communities for fun. I think people are taking these new lockdowns or perimeter confinement seriously, and people are, as I said, adhering to the rules. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.